you've heard me introduce lots of speakers, but I thought perhaps I might tell you a little bit about the work that we're doing at Lumen right now, and talk about specifically about the work that we've been doing to understand made-for-advertising websites and the fraud that it seems to impact an awful lot of our work as digital advertisers. And I just wanted to spend about 15 minutes or so talking to you about that before handing over to Chris Felton from JC.co to talk about attention in out-of-home. So I've been up and down on the stage all day, though perhaps some of you just joining now, perhaps you don't know who Lumen is. Lumen is an attention technology company. We're one of the founders of the sector. We've built a team in London and New York and across Europe designed to help advertisers maximize and optimize the attention that their advertising receives. As many of you know, we base all our stuff on actual biometric data. We collect a lot of eye tracking data and build predictive models on that basis data. In the same way that the guys from Snap were just saying that you can't really have attention data, you can't have attention measurement unless you have attention data. We strongly believe that as well, and that's why we're partnering with them, because trying to understand, you do need to have some eye tracking data or some attention data to be able to build stuff on. And the reason why eye tracking is so important, or attention is so important, is because there is a massive difference between what people could see and what they do in fact look at. Viewability is not the same as viewing, and making sure that we understand the reality of attention is tremendously important as researchers, but also as business people, to make sure that we can deliver what people are actually paying for when it comes to advertising, which is attention. But this is a big issue for any advertiser, but it's particularly important in a world that is full of fraud. One of the things that we haven't talked about on this stage very much is that just because your ad is viewable, just because your ad is served to a computer, doesn't necessarily mean that it'll get looked at, not just because people ignore ads, but because an awful lot of ads are served to bots. There's a tremendous amount of fraud in our industry, and it's something that perhaps we don't always like to think about. But it's there, it's happening right now, and it is negatively impacting business outcomes all over the place. And one of the chief sources of fraud is what's called made-for-advertising websites, MFA. Who here has heard of MFA, or is it as an issue that you're talking about? Lots of hand raising there as well. Now, MFA is a big issue, but like many big issues, it has many different definitions here. What we're talking about when we talk about MFA is websites that are built specifically for arbitrage. What that means is people will nick a whole load of content, often from other more reputable websites, and then serve hundreds of ads next to that. These ads will be, technically speaking, viewable, but the whole thing is aimed not to actually reach real people necessarily, but simply to create viewable ad impressions that a company will go, tick, yes, that ad was viewable, I now deserve being paid some money as part of that. This is a classic ad fraud tactic. And one that the World Federation of Advertisers has highlighted as one of the biggest challenges to the advertising market at the moment. In actual fact, what we see, some basic statistics here, from according to the PwC report that the World Federation of Advertisers put together, they thought that perhaps as much as 23% of programmatic advertising is placed on MFA websites. Other people have suggested that up to 55% of all open web advertising is MFA, and they estimate that over $100 billion is wasted placing ads on sites that are specifically designed to defraud advertisers. So this is a genuinely big problem that the industry is trying to confront. it's confronting it with some people are more successful than others in confronting this, and some people are better at admitting that they have a problem than others. So we commissioned the guys at ExchangeWire to do an interview of 100 media planners in New York and in London to try and understand the scale of the problem and what people are doing about it. And what we found is that everyone sees this as a problem, and everyone is trying to find a solution for it. But some people who think that they've got a solution are trying some things, and other people who think that they've got a problem are doing other things. So from our reports about it, we found people who think that they suffer from high levels of MFA. They know that they've got a problem about it, and they say, so we asked those people, you know that you've got a problem, what are you doing to solve this problem? And people said, well, we try and correlate what we're doing with CPM. One way of doing it is just going to try and buy more expensive stuff. Surely if it's more expensive, then it'll be less likely to be fraudulent. But as they found, you can spend a lot of money on this stuff and it can still be fraudulent. The second thing is that they look for brand safety indications. They work with companies like IAS and Double Verify, and they say, make sure that my ads don't appear next to this type of content or that type of content, thinking that so long as you are not next to jihadi videos, you're not next to MFA websites. But in actual fact, that doesn't seem to work either, because the fraudsters are very well aware that you shouldn't be next to dodgy stuff. That's why they are copying and hacking stuff about football and fashion rather than about politics, because they want to make sure that, that their stuff is as easy and simple to get around the brand safety stuff as possible. And the third thing is, I said that we try and look at just general brand awareness, try and correlate what we buy to brand awareness. I said, well, are you sure you do that? Yes, we try and do that. But the problem is that brand awareness is pretty hard to measure for most digital campaigns. And so even though they use these tactics to try and avoid MFA, they still seem to end up spending a lot of their budget on MFA websites nonetheless. Another group of people feel that they have a much better handle on whether or not their ads are being served next to MFA. People who assume when they do tests that only 10% of their budgets, still 10%, but only 10% of their budgets get spent next to MFA. And we asked these people, what are the tactics that you're using to try and understand the relationship and try to avoid ad fraud and the scourge of MFA. And the first thing that people said was we use clicks, which came as a slight disappointment to me, because I thought we'd all been sort of beyond clicks. But there is at least something good about clicks, because something has happened. Someone has clicked on an ad, and MFA websites are rarely directed towards bots. They're directed to real people. It's just the real people are being served hundreds of ads at the same time. So long as you've got real people and real people are clicking on your ads, that's one way of making sure that at least your ads are being served to real people. The second thing people looked at is incrementality studies. Some of the people that we were talking to are far more sophisticated than others and are using digital incrementality and brand lift studies to really understand where their ads are being served and where their ads are to be avoided, to make sure that you link to outcomes. And the third tactic that these people are already using was attention metrics. And I found this quite interesting, because we commissioned to research to work out what people are doing so that we could try and understand how we could make attention metrics part of the solution. And people are already doing this. It's interesting to see Irfan here from Media Hub. He said he's already using our data in a way that we didn't expect, because Irfan is slightly more intelligent than I am and is already doing stuff. So I was surprised by this. Why would attention metrics be quite useful here? And you can start thinking about the various strategies that you can employ to make sure ads don't get served next to MFA. One way of doing it is to go and create what's called private marketplaces, PMPs. You find a load of websites that have high quality media, and you curate that yourself. I know that this website and that website and the other website are good, and I'm going to stop buying all the other crap. I'll just do this. And this is true. This is a really good way of doing it. It's just working out which of the websites are good and which of the websites are bad is hard work, and can often be quite limiting, because PMPs that have more than 500 domains in there will often contain a load of MFA in there. You have to be really, really careful about curating where your ads are if you're going to use this PMP approach. And that can sometimes mean you've only got 10 or 15 or 20 websites in your PMP. Not quite enough. A second way of doing it is working with verification vendors, people like our partners at IIS or Double Verify, and they're often a good way because they have sort of rules about what counts as MFA there. That's a good start. But as the WFA, the World Federation of Advertisers, found out, this is a good start, but it's not the end of the study. Fraudsters often find a way around the MFA controls that viewability companies put in. Another way of doing it is to go direct, to work with media partners, just to go and buy direct from the New York Times or from the Guardian or from the Le Monde newspaper. That's a fantastic way of doing things, because at least you know that your money is going to the it's definitely not MFA on those websites. The problem is that you have to do a deal with each of these people. You have to go and phone them up one after another to do it. And even then it might not work, because while the Guardian and the Times and Le Monde are absolutely pure as the driven snow, I thought that Forbes was like that too. Forbes, the business magazine, but they themselves have created their own version of MFA. Now that is terrifying when you really think about it. That even if you go direct to people, it might not work. And then the final way of doing it is just looking what you bought, looking really deeply at what you bought to make sure, do I think that this website or that website or the other is actually delivering what I thought. This is, of course, the best thing to do, to actually go and find out if the ads on your for your campaign actually turned up in the way you thought it would. The problem with that is it is bloody hard work, going through millions and millions and millions of lines of code. And while you can do that sort of forensic analysis sometimes, you can do it sort of once or twice, but doing it every day is particularly hard work. So this, you can understand with these sort of tactics here that perhaps advertisers and agencies are looking for other rules of thumb that could help leapfrog the world of MFA in a scalable fashion. And this is where attention data is playing a role already. This is where people like MediaHub using attention data to help identify what's likely to be MFA and avoid that, and direct money towards things that are not MFA, that are actually sort of legitimate websites, makes a real difference. And what you might call this is, instead of a made for advertising websites, it's a made for attention strategy. And what the people that we were speaking to have come to understand is that there's a load of tactics that you can employ to use attention data to avoid MFA in a scalable way. The first way of doing it is using the insights of attention media to go and buy what you might call slow media, media where people are engaging extremely slowly. The more people engage with the content, the more people will engage with the advertising. Just like Hannah from Snap was saying beforehand, some websites and some social media apps are essentially like slot machines. You scroll tremendously fast and the ads spin past in a blur. and this is something that is particularly the case on MFA websites. We've found that MFA websites tend to ensure that their ads deliver the 1 second of the pixels that need to be on view to count as being viewable, and then move on very, very quickly. So when you see a whole bunch of ads that are just barely meeting the viewability standards, that's probably MFA. Now, the other way of doing that is to go and deliberately go and buy websites where people are scrolling very slowly, where there's long viewable times for the ads, and this is what tends to correlate to legitimate websites rather than made for advertising websites. So the first thing to do is to target slow media. The second thing to do is to target environments where there's very low ad clutter. MFA websites tend to make their money by having loads of ads fire at the same time. Now, it's okay to have lots of ads on the page, but you have to make sure that those ads are served one at a time. So you can have long pages with long stories or lots and lots of videos on them, but you need to have ads served one after another, rather than having 6 ads firing at the same time. Here on this website, which will remain nameless, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ads on the screen at exactly the same time. This, for readers of various popular newspapers in Britain, this may not be a surprise to you, but this is exactly what you want to avoid as an advertiser. Just because you have 5 times the ads does not mean you have 5 times the attention. In actual fact, you have 1/5 of the attention, if that. People very quickly find a way to avoid seeing the wood for the trees. And having too many ads on the screen means that none of them get any attention. But this is exactly what happens time and again on MFA websites. And what we do at Lumen is we help people understand to make sure that their ads don't appear on websites like this. And as a result, we make sure that people's ads don't appear on MFA websites. The final thing that you can do is to try and find formats that are themselves made for attention. Not all ads are created equal, a phrase that we've heard time and again on this, at this conference. And we are lucky enough to work with lots and lots of partners who take attention very, very seriously. And here are just some of what you might call made for attention partners here. You never quite know the scheduling here, so obviously we've talked about Snapchat just here, but there are many other partners that you can work with directly who probably who will make sure that their ads only appear on legitimate websites, who make sure that their ads appear in uncluttered environments, but crucially, who developed formats that actually get noticed. It's interesting, I'll just pick on, well, we've talked about WeTransfer as well. I'll pick on Teads and SeedTag here as particularly good examples, where these ads are not always massive. They're not always vast ads. But the way that the technology has been developed is to expand or to catch one's attention so that you get more attention than the viewability data might suggest. And if you take this seriously, if you want to avoid MFA and increase attention, working with these partners here is a surefire way of avoiding the problem that we've got. But I wanted to conclude as well that the final way of making sure that your ads appear avoid appearing on MFA and making sure that your ads are doing what they're meant to be doing anyway is by linking attention to outcomes. This is something that we've been talking about time and again here. We had the guys from Playground talking about the work that they've been doing with Heineken. We've been talking about some of the stuff that WeTransfer have been doing, linking attention to outcomes. The guys from Snap were talking about the same. But the reason why linking attention to outcomes is so important, not just is because it's the core of our business, but it's also the core way of making sure that your ads stop appearing on MFA sites. It's the link to outcomes that tells you that your ads are working and therefore not appearing on MFA website. So what we do at Lumen is we try and always make sure that we understand how much attention each and every ad is getting, and then the outcome from that ad. And that outcome could be a click, or it could be a conversion. It could be a brand lift study. It could be a sales lift study. Talking with our friends at Amazon or at LiveRamp, linking attention to sales outcomes like that. Each brand works in a slightly different way. There isn't a single relationship here, because different brands have different objectives, have different missions, have different jobs to do. Different brands have different creative that works in different ways, but almost all of them follow this sort of pattern. Attention always has some impact on outcomes, but there does seem to be a minimum level of threshold, whatever your objective is, that you have to get 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 seconds of attention before anything happens at all. But having established this minimum threshold of attention, we see that more attention turns into better outcomes really quickly, until such time as you reach a sort of efficient horizon of attention. Buying 23 seconds of attention doesn't actually deliver you tons more value than 22. Buying 61 seconds might not actually be all that much better than 60. Understanding what the S-curve for your brand looks like is super, super important. We always know that there's a connection between the two, but that connection can change and differ. So what we'll do with you is to try and understand what your S-curve looks like, or rather, what your S-curves look like. We'll go and ingest a whole load of data from previous historic campaigns. We'll try and work out what is the relationship between attention and outcomes for you, so that you can understand how you work versus all other brands, but how your your campaign might be working for this campaign versus that campaign, or one country or another country, or one media versus another media. Trying and understanding what that relationship looks like, and then using that to teach our algorithms which media to go and buy, and how to activate and optimize your campaigns in real time. So we'll take a load of your outcomes data, we'll apply our attention models to it to understand what it is that you need to do to achieve your objectives. And then we'll go and use that to target campaigns so you can actually buy the right level of attention to drive the outcomes that are right for you. And we've been doing this for hundreds of brands now, which is all very exciting. But one car brand in particular worked with us on this basis, where we tried to understand how much attention did they need to deliver the results that they wanted. Selling cars is very different to selling insurance. Getting people to do test drives is very different to getting people just to be aware of the car brand. But what we found is that by adopting this approach, trying to make sure that we've got the right level of attention to deliver the results that they needed, we saw 3 really quite interesting things. The first is that conversions went up by 400%, which is always very reassuring. That the stuff actually works. People are actually making sure that the ads are appearing to the right people in the right way, avoiding MFA, and therefore getting clicked on and getting acted on. So conversions went up by 400%, and not just any old clicks, but qualified conversions went up by 200%. But, and this is the terrifying thing, CPMs went up by 158%. We were buying fewer ads, but we were spending much more money for them. Because one good thing about MFA websites is they are dirt cheap in many ways. And so we found this a terrifying moment where you're actually you're spending more of your client's money, or you aren't reducing the CPMs. But the great thing about that is that there is a virtuous circle. We bought fewer ads, but more expensive ads, but they worked better. And therefore, as a result, the CPA, the cost per acquisition, went down by 58%. The cost of the media went up, but the cost of acquisition went down, which is exactly what you would expect from buying better media to deliver the right levels of attention to drive business outcomes. So we've got all of these findings in a presentation here. You can download the report with all the data here. Please do that. Go and visit our chums over at the booth, who can tell you a bit more and work out what's the right level of attention to avoid MFA and to deliver business outcomes for you. So thanks very much for your time.